Hi, I'm Charlie McCaffrey, and this is my final project, Politicized Religion, Flipping the God Gap in American Politics. And specifically, I want to look at the opposite of what most people are thinking about when they talk about the God Gap. They're talking about how Democrats tend to be more secular, Republicans are more religious, and this is causing an influence of religion into political behavior in the United States. So by flipping that, rather than religious behavior, how it informs political behavior, I want to look at how political behavior informs religious identity in the United States. All right, so how did I arrive at this topic? My research question was, how and why do political views change religious practice in the United States? And I took a look at this information from Pew Research Center, looking at the last 4 years. And what we see when we look at religiously active people, all right, in this case, people that attended services at least monthly, okay, that in the last 4 years, we've seen an increase in the number of Republicans, right, the percentage of Republicans that are active in practicing their religion, and a decrease in the number of Democrats. So clearly, we go back to 2019, more Republicans were religious than Democrats. And when I say religious in terms of actively participating, but in the last 4 years, it's a, pretty good change in what's happening, right? Fewer Democrats are practicing, more Republicans are practicing. Why? What's bringing that about? Okay. So my thesis, as the political landscape continues to polarize, American political identities are shaping their social and cultural identities more than in the past. Okay. Key concepts from the course that I'm utilizing in my final project: religious marketplace theory. How are the different religions changing and adjusting as political viewpoints are coming in and impacting religious beliefs and religious activity? The culture wars, right? I mean, that's existed in terms of how religion is impacting politics. But as we flip that, what's going on with the cultural wars inside churches as they're competing for people and as people are, moving out the back door? And then from a secular standpoint, right? The secularization thesis has always said that as societies modernize, people are going to move away from religion because they're going to rely more on rational thought and scientific theory than religious belief. But I'm arguing here that in addition to that, while that is going on within the United States, we're seeing a movement in certain political parties towards secularization as people are reacting to what the other side is doing. So opposing sides are reacting in terms of their religious behavior. Okay, so what brings me to this thesis that I have? Well, when I looked at information from the Pew Research Center on the growth of the nons, right? You could argue it's starting to tail off, that we got up in 2022, 2021, actually 2021, where almost 1 in 3 Americans were identifying as a non, right? And then it has started to drop off. Now, most statisticians would say, hey, it's too early to tell whether we've seen a complete, turnaround and that the number of nons is starting to decrease. I'm arguing that part of the reason why nons are starting to decrease is that we're seeing an increase in political activity within the churches, or that's driving people, particularly on the Republican side. More Republicans are moving back to being active in terms of their religious activity, right? So they're leaving the nuns group and becoming more active. Democrats are still moving into the nuns, all right? So Democrats are choosing to be at a higher rate, choosing to be nuns, versus Republicans that are potentially leaving their non-affiliation status and becoming affiliated because they're reacting against the liberalism of the Democratic Party. Okay, so more data from Pew Research that leads me to view this point. So if you go all the way back to the mid-90s, and we're looking at people that identified as being unaffiliated with religion, right? Clearly, there were more Democrats. Blue line is Democrat, red line is Republicans. More Democrats than Republicans that were more affiliated. But while the Democrats have grown in the percentage that view themselves as unaffiliated to a religion, the Republicans has decreased. Okay, that's important here. Democrats continue to see themselves as unaffiliated, which drives home the point the Democratic Party is becoming the party of secular viewpoints. And then less Republicans see themselves as unaffiliated, drives home the viewpoint that the Republican Party is the party of religion. All right. So what I'd like to do is not view, graph after graph here, but just dive into how scholars are viewing this. So Mark Smith, a political science professor at the University of Washington, he wrote a book in 2018, published in 2018 by University of Chicago Press, Secular Faith. Right. And so he was making the argument that popular acceptance of progressive political views on topics such as women's rights, divorce, abortion, sexual orientation have changed mainstream Protestant religions and their view on modern socio-political issues. Okay. This goes back to the marketplace theory about what's going on here. As this secularization is happening, Republicans are acting against what they're seeing is happening with the Democrats, more liberal, more secularized. Republicans become more conservative, more religious. More Republicans tend to be Protestant in terms of demographic. Mainstream Protestant churches are reacting to this opportunity, marketplace theory, to bring Republicans back into the fold as they react against what they're seeing happening in the Democratic Party. Okay, and then David Campbell and his colleagues, political science department at University of Notre Dame, in an article that they published in the American Journal of Political Science in 2018, kind of coming to the same conclusion, right? They looked at a wealth of data. All right, they looked at 4 different panels from 2010 to 2012, just under 10,000 respondents. And their conclusion was that from this article, Putting Politics First, the impact of politics on American religious and secular orientations, that yes, political behavior is in fact influencing religious activity, right? And to take that a step further, they argue Republicans in general are becoming more active in religion, even those that had not been active before, as Democrats are becoming less active in religion. Again, based on over 10,000 respondents in roughly a 2-year, 4 different research panels. Okay, Putnam and again Campbell. So Robert Putnam from Harvard Kennedy School of Government, David Campbell, as I mentioned, from University of Notre Dame. They wrote a book, American Grace. Their thesis was basically there was a backlash among young people against how the Republicans are using religion in the political sphere, right? So this is pushing more young people into a secular orientation, right? The young liberals are avoiding religion because they associate it with conservative republicanism. Okay. So a reaction to the Republicans on the Democratic side, moving young people away from religion. Okay. Now, kind of away from scholars to a regular periodical that people read on a regular basis, America Without God. The Atlantic published this article, and it really looked at how, again, the same thesis that political beliefs have replaced religious beliefs as the guiding standards for American ideal, right? The American ideal. What we're really talking about there is morals, right? Before it used to be about religion, now it's about politics. And so you could take this a step further, right? That politics is informing moral belief, which used to stand for religious belief. Okay. Back more in the scholarly direction, politics in the pews here, Michelle Margolis. So again, published by the University of Chicago. Margolis is a political science professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Her conclusion was, as the Democratic Party becomes more secular, modern Republicans react by becoming more religious. So again, another scholarly viewpoint that supports my thesis. Sartos a little bit different in terms of pronouncing here. The Greek name, Partorikos, from University of Glasgow, in Scotland. There published an article in Political Behavior, uh, driving home the point that Republicans turn to religion in reaction to the increase in liberal noms. There's a fear that one out of every three Americans is religious. The country's moving, or Democrats are moving away from having any connection to religion. Republicans that oppose the political ideas of the Democrats, that political viewpoint is coming into their religious activity, and as a reaction, they are becoming more religious. Okay, back to the United States. Houghton Fisher, both political science professors out of Cal Berkeley, published this article in the American Sociological Review, driving home the same point. So this supports my thesis. As the conservative Christians gained influence in the Republican Party, liberal Democrats reacted to the mixture of religion and politics by rejecting traditional organized religious organizations. All right. So this goes back to the original graph I started off with, statistics showing that there was a decrease in the number of Republicans that saw themselves as unaffiliated. Republicans were turning towards religion. This helped, of course, with the Christian right, heavily involved on the Republican side, giving liberal Democrats the idea that the Republican Party is the party of religion. Well, if I'm not a Republican and I'm opposed to Republican ideals, then I should be more secular. Okay. Now, here, a political science professor from Eastern Illinois University wrote this op-ed piece in the New York Times, right? And it's, the title of it was "A More Secular America is Not Just a Problem for the Republicans." Why? Why is this important? Well, embedded within the Democratic Party are some key groups. We'll use Black churches as the example here, that are conservative on many of the social issues that the Democratic Party, in particular the secular elements of the Democratic Party, are driving forward, right? Issues like sexual and gender identity, as an example, right? This is not where the Black church is at from a political standpoint. So the question that and would require further research in terms of the issues of race, politics, and religion. What will happen with the Black church? As the Democratic Party becomes more secular, will the Black church follow, or will the Black church start to become less democratic and split between their vote, split between Democratic and Republican? I find that hard to believe, but not all of the Democratic Party can be considered the secular party. It's just that the numbers clearly show that Democrats right now, if they would identify as a whole, right, as a group, largely more secular than the Republicans, and both sides are reacting against each other when they see that. So let's bring this into conclusion. So I kind of stay within the 15-minute time that I promised that I would do on my project. Noam Chomsky, he looked at it. He's a political and social critic, right? And he looked at what's happening in American politics, and he looked at it from what the political parties are doing, right? He's arguing that the political parties are taking advantage of this situation, and they're manipulating religious beliefs to create voting blocks. All right. And the concept here is that the Republicans are seeing the opportunity, right, to grab up all those that see themselves as actively involved in religion. And remember, there was still a sizable amount of the Democratic Party that saw themselves as actively involved in religion, to include key, blocks like the Black church, right? Conversely, the Democratic Party is seeing an opportunity where they can pull Republicans away that are repulsed by the injection of religion in politics, and to pull them over to the Democratic side, right? So, if I want to conclude this by, zeroing in on what Chomsky's saying right here, is when we look at religion from a marketplace theory, there's an opportunity here, for churches to identify with who they can be bringing into their church, right? Especially on the Republican side, that there are Republicans that, in reaction to the Democratic Party, are open to once again become active in their church. And this will only add fuel to the fire of the cultural wars, right? And the secularization of the United States. I mean, if we look at our country as half Democratic and Republican, as that Democratic Party continues to move in that direction, right? What does that mean for the growth of secularization in the United States? We still have those blocks. I didn't mention Jewish Democrats as an example. The Jewish Democrats, there has not been a significant change in terms of Jews moving over to becoming nones, but they are still, like the Black church, heavily Democrat. And that's the future of where the Democratic Party goes. How does it reconcile its move towards secularization with major voting blocks within the Democratic Party, Jews and the Black church, and to a much lesser degree, the Latinx community? So that would be the question that I would throw out after having come to the conclusion that data and the opinions of scholars looking at a series of data supports the fact that politics is in fact informing religious behavior right now as we move towards the midpoint of the third decade of the 21st century. Thank you. It was an enjoyable course. I learned a lot, especially from this final project, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.